This is incredibly exciting because a new level of gaming is now possible that never used to be possible. I game at 4K. I have a 48-inch LG C1 OLED TV, which I use as my primary gaming monitor, and it's amazing. But my GPU up until now has been an RTX 3080 12GB. And I also used an RX 6800 XT on the same monitor for a long time as well. And both of them did a great job. They offered a great 4K gaming experience. And that OLED monitor, honestly, it's so good. The contrast, the HDR, the pixel response time, it's fantastic. I love it. But I couldn't just mindlessly max out the settings and still get a high refresh rate experience. Even if I had wanted to spend thousands of dollars to do that, it just was not possible. The technology did not exist. The RTX 3080 was in a weird position in that, yes, it has good ray tracing performance for its generation, but at 4K, at least in the most demanding ray tracing games, it just couldn't deliver it without upscaling so aggressively that it kind of ends up being an image quality compromise rather than a strict benefit. You couldn't just game at 4K with max settings and especially not get a high refresh rate experience. Sometimes just tweaking settings to get 60 frames per second or better was actually, work you had to put in. And it was fine. It was doable. You don't have to play games at max settings and you can still perfectly enjoy them. Honestly, guys, I got a Steam Deck recently, and I've been playing that more than I have on my gaming PC, and a lot of those games I'm playing at 30 frames per second at 800p, okay? And I'm having a great time. It's really enjoyable. You do not need the latest and the greatest. You do not need high refresh rate. You do not need high resolution. You do not need maximum graphic settings to enjoy games, okay? You absolutely don't. Completely unnecessary. However, there is certainly some enjoyment and absolutely some satisfaction in being able to play a game at the absolute pinnacle of what is technologically possible. And until now, our display technology was was capable of more than our GPU technology was. And that's no longer the case. The RTX 4090 is now able to deliver high refresh rate, 4K gaming at maxed out settings, including ray tracing in most situations, although it still looks like some DLSS will still be needed in the most demanding ray tracing situations to stay at a high refresh rate. But again, DLSS quality, great. DLSS ultra performance, gross, right? So it's a very different situation compared to these previous generation GPUs. So for my situation, I'm incredibly excited. I can now actually max out my display and max out the graphics settings, have the best of the best. And, it's cool that you can buy something that wasn't previously available. But as usual, that's going to come at a cost. This thing is $1,600. That alone makes this for a very, very small minority of people who either have a lot of free income to burn or can make money off of the GPU. I'm in that situation. I can only afford buying this. I'm going to buy one tomorrow morning. And if you guys are like, wait, I clicked on this video and he doesn't have one, I don't get sent review samples. My channel is still fairly new and small. I watched lots of reviews today. Don't tell my boss. And 2x speed on YouTube is great. Anyway, the point is, I've watched tons of reviews on this thing to form my opinions here, but I don't have one in hand. I'm going to buy one tomorrow, and then I'm going to produce a lot of follow-up video content on the RTX 4090, so stay tuned to the channel if you're interested in that. I like to benchmark new games as they come out. That'll be great. I'm also really interested in features like DLSS 3 with the frame generation. Most of the reviews today either completely didn't use it at all, said like it was crashing and just wasn't working for testing. Very few games actually support it. And a couple of reviews did at least some brief tests with it. The channel that did the most with this is Digital Foundry, and that's mostly due to the fact that NVIDIA gave them exclusive access ahead of time to DLSS 3 and allowed them to produce content on that early. Now, watching their content on it brings up some really interesting points, because NVIDIA's, marketing for this GPU was like, it's 4 times fast. I mean, 2 to 4 times faster than the previous generation, all of that. But usually to get up to that 4 times faster number, you need this frame generation technology. It looked like in most situations, it was somewhere more like 50 to 70% faster than the previous generation, and then sometimes double the performance. But that really depended on the game. And in some games, it was only more like 40% faster. So it's kind of all over the place. But the point is, it is significantly faster. But to get to those crazy numbers, you need that frame generation technology. Now, the frame generation technology, according to Digital Foundry, because I really want to get my head on this, hands on this, and tell you about like in-person experience with it. But this sounds like there's one really annoying feature, which is that using this technology, it looks like going at 4K past 120 hertz is going to be a very reasonable thing if you're using frame generation. The problem with that is twofold. Number one, it's incompatible with frame rate limiters and VSync, meaning that if you have a 4K 120 hertz display, like I do, you can get screen tearing. And it looks like you can try to force it through the control panel, but that doesn't work in all situations. And even when it does work, they hinted at it causing some issues with some games in terms of latency, or even with the, some kind of stuttering with the camera, things like that. But it sounds like they're going to produce a follow-up video with more information about those details. In addition to that, as I've talked about in previous videos, just based on the pre-full review information that was out there, DLSS 3 does increase latency. I was right about that. It does generate 2 frames and insert one in between, which does have some image artifacting and does increase latency. But I think in single player games, it's probably going to be really cool. It's just annoying that it's, again, incompatible with frame rate limiters, because I don't want to end up with screen tearing, so I'll have to play around with that and see how that looks. Also, with the idea of going past 4K 120, we have another issue. One of my minor annoyances with the RTX 4090 is that it doesn't have a DisplayPort 2.0 compatibility, which means that if you go past 4K 120, you need to have chroma subsampling. And there are some 4K 144 hertz displays, and then future displays, again, could have that DisplayPort 2.0 available, again, to enable going past 4K 120 without display stream, without some kind of compression, like chroma subsampling, that kind of a thing. So it's a little bit annoying that a $1,600 graphics card wouldn't spring for DisplayPort 2.0 for some reason, when even Intel Arc GPUs, which are less than $300 with the A750, actually do have it. So that's really interesting and kind of annoying. But other than those minor annoyances, it looks like a lot of the other potential issues, like the power, the power requirements, at least on this Founders Edition model, seem to not be too crazy or too terrible. Gamers Nexus, I think, does the best power testing and thermals, that kind of a thing, and saw that the transient peaks in the amount of testing they were able to do here actually weren't even as bad as NVIDIA's Ampere series, the 3000 series. And Hardware Unboxed actually did their entire review on an 850 watt power supply. So it looks like I was actually right in my video on the power supplies, where I said that I think a lot of these companies, listing you need a 1200 watt power supply or a 1000 watt power supply is a little bit overblown. At least NVIDIA's Founders Edition, they claimed it's fine on 850 watts, at least if it's a high quality one. That does seem to be the case, but again, keep in mind what your CPU is. The Hardware Unboxed review was done on a 5800X3D, which is a very efficient CPU when compared to like a 12900KS that's overclocked, that kind of a thing. Now, speaking of CPUs, that's going to be one of the issues with this, with the RTX 4090, and another reason why this isn't for everybody. Even if you can afford the $1,600, and that's not a problem for you, the other problem is, what if, if you're on 1080p or 1440p. Now, 1080p is not a surprise, but 1440p, even in a lot of graphically demanding titles, the RTX 4090 does start hitting CPU limits in a lot of these review benchmarks that we've seen. And that means that the amount of performance gain you'll get by buying this compared to buying a 3080 or a 3090 isn't as dramatic as it is at 4K, where you're less likely to be CPU limited. But honestly, it was even getting CPU limited sometimes at 4K, which is just absolutely insane. But the point is, unless you have a really high-end CPU to go with this and you're gaming at 4K, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So in summary, based on the massive amounts of reviews I've looked at, and again, I can't wait to get one of these in my hands in person, it looks like this GPU makes a lot of sense for 4K high refresh rate gaming if you're somebody where $1,600 is fine, or you can make money off of the GPU, itself to earn back some of that value, right? And to put that in perspective, think about this compared to some other hobbies. Like, I have friends who are really into cars, right? And, you drive a new car off the lot and it loses thousands of dollars in value. Or you're working on a project car and you can be spending thousands of dollars on that. And there's a lot of other hobbies like this. They're incredibly expensive. So yes, $1,600 for a GPU is a lot of money. I hate that GPUs have gotten that expensive. I would have loved to see something like this for under $1,000. But in the big picture, I don't think somebody who wants to just buy the best of the best for their favorite hobby, spending $1,600 is unreasonable if you're able to do that in a financially responsible way. I don't think you should rack up massive credit card debt to do this. I think if you can pay for this cash because you just have that money sitting around, you didn't need it for rent, you can do this responsibly, then I think that makes sense, right? Okay. Now, for those of you saying like nobody should pay this, it's gonna, it's just gonna feed into NVIDIA will keep doing this and GPUs will just get more and more expensive. Guys, with where NVIDIA's at right now, with their 3000 series still needing to sell, there's no way they would have released this for less money. They have priced it to scale with the RTX 3000 series. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's what they've done. Meaning they're trying to make the 3080s and 3090s still make sense in a relative performance to price setting at their current prices. So they have priced this above the 3000 series, and it delivers performance above the 3000 series. And I would have loved to have seen a better performance per dollar increase from this, but we're just not going to see that until NVIDIA sells most of their 3000 series, and then we might start seeing discounts on this. Now, it'll be cool to see what's coming from AMD in November. Maybe, so honestly, a lot of people, it'll make sense to wait and see what's coming from Team Red. I think we might see something really cool. It could compete with this. I don't know. However, I do kind of doubt that in terms of ray tracing performance, they're going to keep up. So for somebody who's wanting to just max out games, including 4K with ray tracing, I think this is going to be it until we inevitably see the 4090 Ti. Anyway, but what I'm saying here is, yes, this is incredibly expensive, but it was always going to be. NVIDIA was either just not going to release this, or they were going to release it at this price until the 3000 series sells out. That just is what it is, okay? Now, I don't want this video to drag on forever because, quite frankly, I don't have one of these. I need to get one. I'm going to buy one tomorrow, and I'm bringing you a whole lot more of my thoughts. But my overall thought is, again, guys, like I said, I'm having tons of fun playing on my Steam Deck. When these new GPUs come out, you don't need to buy one. If you want to buy one and you can do that responsibly, financially, great, go for it. And I don't think you need to let anybody make you feel bad about doing that. However, like I said, if you're having fun playing your games, you're still going to have fun playing your games on your current hardware. You can still do it. It's fine. You don't need to buy this, especially not day one, okay? I'm going to do it because I can earn money back from doing that by making YouTube videos about it in the future. So stay tuned for those if you are interested, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.